Congressman Barney Frank just announced he won't seek re-election next year, so it must be time for Trifecta to stomp on the rotting corpse of his career. I'm Steve Green, and let's bring on Scott Ott and Bill Whittle. Gentlemen, Barney Frank, best known for his scandals and his, well, horrible taste in men. But what he should be best known for is scuttling the whole world's economy. Here he is speaking just a few months before the housing bubble burst. A bubble, by the way, he probably did more than any other single person to inflate.
Because we have, I think, an excessive degree of concern right now about home ownership and its role in the economy. Obviously, speculation is never a good thing. But those who argue that housing prices are now at the point of a bubble seem to me to be missing a very important point.
And it doesn't really matter what that point is because we all know how wrong he was. So, Scott, first question to you. Barney Frank savaged anyone, just savaged them who questioned him on the party line about Fannie and Freddie. And we've been paying the price for that in the trillions for about 3 years now. So here's the tough question. You glad he's going home?
Well, we don't know where he's going. He's just not running for re-election. And the headline that I saw, I think that disturbed me most about this, what it says, Barney Frank to retire from Congress. And my immediate thought was, no, you don't get to retire from Congress. You either don't run again or you get voted out. It's not a career. You can't retire from it. But I'll tell you what, there's no reason why this man should leave. That clip you just played, I don't think I've ever seen somebody speak for so long without saying a single thing that was true. I mean, that takes a concentrated effort. You could inadvertently say something true.
And it was only a 15-second clip. By the way, Reuters was generous enough to admit that his career was colorful. That was their word. Anyway, Bill, just last year, Frank came to his closest yet to losing his seat, thanks to Tea Party candidate Sean Vilat. And this year, Democrats in Massachusetts redrew Frank's district in such a way as to make it even harder for him to hold on next fall. You think his own party was trying to send him a message?
I think reality is trying to send him a message. I don't think the picture looks real good for Democrats anywhere. You know, you lose in New York. I mean, it's looking pretty brutal for them out there. Well, first of all, Barney Frank is leaving Washington, and the Republic weeps. How will the great nation continue? I'm kind of with Scotty on this. You know, one of my favorite sayings is that liberals want conservatives to shut up, and conservatives want liberals to keep talking. Barney Frank's ability to keep talking is one of the greatest selling tools that the GOP has, and to that degree, I'm going to miss the guy.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to miss him for very long.
Not
Scott,
that much either.
Frank was caught, of course, early in his career with his boyfriend running a male brothel in their house. Just last year, another boyfriend was busted for pot while Frank was right there in the room. I mean, I could go on. There's plenty of scandals with Barney Frank. But how would things be different today, do you think, if we held our politicians not to a higher standard, but just to the same standard we hold our next-door neighbor? Yeah, any standard.
Well, yeah, that would be nice if we held them to an ordinary standard. I mean, I think the success of the new book, which I think is called something like "Throw Them All Out," is testimony to the sort of shock that the normal people have when they read about these insider stock deals and IPOs that members of Congress get access to that the rest of us don't. That the fact that you can be having an adult relationship with somebody who's running an agency that you're supposed to be providing oversight for, you know, these kinds of things aren't permitted in our local communities. You wouldn't allow them in your Boy Scout troop or your Little League, and yet at Congress, it seems like they're above.
It's some sort of sanctuary for the morally corrupt. That's Scott Ott, host of Freedom's Charter right here on PJTV, and his Trifecta this week looks at the latest lunacy from Harry Reid. That ought to be fun. All right, Bill, big finish time. Forget that he's quitting, but how does a guy like Barney Frank thrive in Washington for 30 years? I mean, anyone can get elected if his constituents like him, but how does a guy like Frank become such a power broker?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Steve, because seriously now, there's a very important point to be made here. Congress has always been filled with idiots. Mark Twain said there's no distinctly criminal American class except for Congress. He said, now, suppose you were a congressman, or suppose you were an idiot. But I repeat myself, this kind of thing goes on and on and on. It's been there historically. The difference today is simply this. Congress and the federal government have more control over our lives than at any time in history, and this has accelerated dramatically since the New Deal and the Great Society. So what used to be a place where posturing buffoons would go and get their little checks because they couldn't succeed anywhere else meant that through most of our history, they haven't had that much impact on our lives. But today they do. We cannot afford these kind of idiots anymore. These kind of third-rate, fourth-rate minds and zero-rate morals have got to go. As they get more and more control over our lives, we should have less and less tolerance for these kind of idiots.
There you go. We need to send them all home and maybe wall off K Street like Escape from New York. That's Bill Whittle, host of Afterburner, and this week on Trifecta, he's going to have us take a look at the new Coke of politics. All right, folks, yes, Barney Frank was a scandal monger who got away with it. Yes, he puffed up Fannie and Freddie until they nearly took us into another depression. And he got away with all of it because we long ago ceded the moral high ground to the left. We surrendered during the last Great Depression, and we never fought to get it back. We never accepted the idea, but we acceded to the idea that a minority could get away with anything because he's a minority. And we acceded to the idea that it's the government's job to make our lives easier. That is how we got to where we are today. Well, it's time to retake that hill. Who's with me? For Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and everyone here at PJTV, I'm Steve Green.